Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Hey Buck Outdoors. Today we are doing a review over the Brisa Hiker 95. This is a Scandi grind knife, very similar to your Mora knives. BPS knives has a couple very similar to this. So we're going to get into the specifications of this particular blade real quick, and then we're going to get into the actual review itself. So stand by. So like I said, this is the Brisa Hiker 95. I'm going to read off some of the specifications, and we're going to get into the review itself. So it is a Scandi grind knife, very similar to your Mora knives and stuff like that. As you can see here, true Scandi grind. The type of steel used on this particular blade is Sandvik 12C27 stainless, so definitely you won't have to worry about corrosion as much with this blade. Something that is cool to mention, let's see if it'll focus, this cool little swedge up here. That's like the real hardcore bushcrafters will say that that's, that shouldn't be on there, but I think it's kind of cool looking. Honestly, it's not sharp by any stretch. If you wanted to, you could probably sharpen it, but there's really no means. There is somewhat of a 90-degree spine on there, so if you wanted to throw some sparks there with a ferro rod, you could definitely do that. All right, so let's put that back. The blade length on this puppy is 3.74 inches. Now it does have a little bit of a bevel there, so probably closer to like 3.5. The overall length just over 8 inches at 8.27. Blade thickness is 0.137. For my non-Americans, that's 3.5 millimeters. It is a drop point blade design, polymer handle. Something cool to mention with this particular handle compared to the Mora Companion in particular, it has quite a bit more texture. As you can see, it's like a fish scale. Pretty neat, pretty full. I wear large size gloves, and I can back that out. I can, grip all the way around that. Don't have any issues. If I want to choke up, get some finer cuts, I can definitely do that. I have a lanyard hole here at the bottom, so definitely nothing to complain about there. It feels very good. You've got this little indent here to put your index finger. There's no, at least it doesn't feel like there's going to be any hot spots for if you want to rest your thumb on the top of the blade here. The sheath is leather. Let me go over that real quick. Compared to like the Mora knife, where you've got the polymer sheath, I actually prefer this. It's nice, full grain leather, stitching all the way through, little vent hole, nothing crazy. Have a little dangler here that goes on the normal loop. If you don't want to use that, you can just put your belt through there. It is wide enough to fit most utility belts through. Obviously nothing crazy. Show you how it rests there. Pretty cool. I'll put in some footage real quick of how it rides on the belt. So that's how it's riding. As you can see, it's pretty flush with my waistline. It is a little bit noisy, but then again, the leather is brand new, so nothing really out of the ordinary there. Not too bad. Something I think that doesn't get tested quite enough when you see these knife reviews all over YouTube is its ability to cut cardboard. And a lot of us aren't out in the outdoors 24/7, so just being able to process and do daily tasks like cutting through cardboard, if you get an Amazon package or something, is pretty important to myself. Just going to show you that Scandi grind with that good shoulder angle. Show you guys that real quick. Definitely makes some of the finer work with these types of blades pretty easy. And I'm putting a little bit of pressure on there, choking up. I'm not really having any issues cutting through any of that cardboard. If I want to pierce through the middle, I can. Definitely doable. All right, so it can cut through cardboard pretty darn good. Let's move on to the next test. As always, we have to figure out, is it any good at cutting paracord? I don't think we're going to have any issues, but let's just try it. There's one loop. Really easy, nothing to complain about there. Going to do a few loops, see if it'll cut through all of them. Pretty darn easy. Definitely have to put a little bit more pressure on that than just one loop, but not a problem whatsoever. All right, the next test we are going to do is hemp rope. I'm a big fan of this stuff, especially for improvised shelter making. This stuff is easy. I wonder if it's any good at starting fires. I've never tried. Anyone down in the comments below who has can let me know. It's pretty strong stuff. Not all knives can get through it pretty easily, so let's try it. Boom. Cut that right in half. Let's do that again. Again, like butter. No complaints there. Let's move on to the next. Now, the whole point of these style of knives is woodscraft / bushcraft. So the review would not be complete unless we tried some of that. We're gonna make a basic spear point and see how it goes. I think that's important for every single survival knife, camp knife, whatever. And if this goes well, we'll try to make a notch, maybe a little shelf. So I am not really having any issues so far. Shaving all that bark off relatively easy. Definitely show you guys some of that up close work. Not too bad whatsoever. I have used this just a little bit before I started the review, so it does not have like a brand new edge on it, but I'm not really having any issues. There's quite a few knots, as you can see, in this wood, so really no complaints there. Definitely want to be able to make a spear point if you have to do some improvised tent pegs, or if you want to cook some game over the fire that you killed. Now let's see how reverse grip is. Not a problem. Boom. Pretty easy. This is some tougher wood. Choking up on it, not really feeling any crazy hot spots. I will say that fish scale checkering on that handle is really nice. Definitely gives you good texture. If you're gonna be working in humid or wet environments, I don't think you'll have an issue grabbing onto this at all. And yeah, not too bad. I will say it's having a little bit of trouble with some of these knots here. Could just be the way I'm doing it too. Kind of rushing it. Not bad whatsoever. Almost like filleting it, I would say. I mean, I've had knives that'll cut wood better, but then again, this is just like an overall camp knife. Let's move on to the next test. All right, so what I'm gonna do next is try to make like a little notch or a shelf. I think this is pretty important to learn how to do, especially if you're gonna make, I don't know, you can make your own Lincoln logs, I guess. And I wouldn't use this for shelter building, but if you had to, knowing that it can do that. So what I'm doing is just putting 2 lines in that wood. And then I'm gonna take that, and this is where Scandi grinds really come in with the W, is being able to do that finer work. So as you can see, I'm just digging into that wood, and now I'm holding that and using that secondary edge to just shave off to get that shelf made. And I will say, I'm very impressed with the fine work this is being able to do. I mean, I've only used this a little bit, but already it's on par with a Mora. Show you guys what we've got so far. Definitely still need some work. I'll put this on time lapse and show you guys when I'm done. So I was able to make a decent little shelf, as you can see right there. Definitely can be done. I will say that Scandi grind is really good for some of that finer work. I don't know if I've mentioned this, but it is not a full tang construction, very similar to the Mora knife. It's more of like a rat or stick style tang. Comes down here to the handle somewhere. I could be wrong about that. Correct me if I am down in the comments, but it definitely can do some of that finer woodworking. This is probably better to make a spear point just to show you. You can really choke up on that if you absolutely have to. And there is no guard on this, but I feel like, you know, you have that little finger swell right there, and you've got, I really have no feeling like I'll lose control of this knife. It's got plenty of texturing, plenty of real estate for my hands. Again, I've got large hands, so it definitely helps. And it's just shooting those pieces of wood off there. Definitely very, very impressive. Now, with this being slightly wider than a standard Mora, or even a Mora heavy, I was worried that it wasn't going to be able to do the finer work as well, but I'm pleasantly surprised. And you could probably even hit on this a little bit if you want to do some batoning. I probably wouldn't. That's really not really what this knife is for, but if you wanted to, you could go for it. But it's just making short work of this wood. You know, again, tent pegs or basic spear points if you need to like make a fishing gig for catching frogs, or, you know, cooking something over the fire. And that was all of what, 30 seconds, and that looks great. So when we get into competitive options, there's really only one that comes to mind that's in the same style. Again, BPS Knives has a couple that are all right, but in this style of blade, the only real competitor in my mind of what this is trying to be is a Mora Companion or Mora Heavy. Now, this is my personal companion. I've beat the absolute heck out of this thing, as you can see, and you can obviously just see the similarities there between them. Now, I will say the blade on them both is roughly the same size. The Mora might have a few inches, or excuse me, a few millimeters on it, but again, nothing crazy. Now, if you look at the thickness, see what I was talking about just a minute ago with the thickness. The Brisa definitely has a little bit on it, which is good. I like to have a little bit of beef in the knife, that way it can get some of the slightly heavier work done. So I would say it gets a win on that part. I'm not noticing really any difference in the ability to do finer work between these two knives. I will say the biggest difference in my eyes is the handle design along with price. So as you can see on the Brisa, we have that nice fish scale, which I've been talking about, that finger swell. And on the Mora, you've got some texturing, but not a lot. Pretty basic polymer. They're about, I will say, similar weights. I would say that the Brisa is a little bit heavier. When it comes down to pricing, though, the Mora obviously is going to run you anywhere from like $17 to $25, depending on where you're getting it from. Most times you can pick them up for $20. On the other hand, the Brisa is going to run you anywhere from $50 to $75. Now, it begs the question, is it really worth that extra money? Essentially what you're getting is just a Finnish Mora with a little bit better construction, I would say. I will say the steel does feel slightly better. You've got a mirror polish on there. I will put this, I'll show you guys that real quick. It is stainless, but I'm already getting some slight rust on the blade there, and it's just been staying in my little camp pack all week, so I'm kind of disappointed to see that. But then again, on my Mora, I've got the same thing on the blade here. I live in a humid environment here on the West Coast. So getting into final thoughts, I do like this knife. I think it's definitely a cool piece to add to your collection if you have the money. Now, I think where you have to start to decide is you're essentially getting the same thing as the Mora. I would say this is slightly better construction, but overall, it's the same thing. Swedish made, Finnish made. I would say what this is really made for is maybe someone who has a couple or 2 or 3 Moras and they just want something different. You know, scratch that itch of, you know, having a variety of different bushcraft knives. I will say a couple of the things that I did like, again, the fish scales, the wider blade. The Sandvik is definitely a good intermediate steel, nothing like a super steel. Something where I think also it has an edge over the Mora. So you can see there's no lanyard hole in the Mora. You can obviously probably adjust that and make one yourself. It's definitely not a deal breaker, but with how heavy this is, you're not going to be whacking on it and batoning and cutting through big old branches too much, but having a lanyard hole is nice, definitely, to just be able to grip onto the knife and know that you have that as a safeguard. For the price, 50 to 75 bucks. Again, where you can find them, availability is kind of spotty right now with the supply chain and everything going on in the world. But I say what this is mainly for is someone who has 2 or 3 Moras and just wants to try something different. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'm happy with this. I definitely think it's an interesting piece of the collection. Definitely be able to see what some of the other Scandinavian countries are offering in today's market. I think the leather sheath sets it apart too. It's definitely a pretty cool option compared to the polymer of the Mora. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'd really love to hear. I think this is an excellent knife. And I definitely think if you have the ability to, you should be able to own one of these, and definitely should get one if you can. All right, thank you guys for watching so much. I really appreciate you guys viewing in today on the channel. If you want to help support the channel, the best way to do that is to subscribe. If you have not already, roughly 96% of you have not subscribed to the channel. So if you could go ahead and do that, click the notification bell icon to all notifications. I'd really appreciate it. Like, share, and comment. Helps promote the video and the channel and the algorithms, and I would really appreciate it if you did that. Thank you guys so much for watching, and please have a fantastic day.